Hello students, welcome to Anytime, Anywhere Learning. This is week 9. My name is Miss Garner and I'm one of the English 2 instructors at DeSoto High School. Thank you so much for following along in this Anytime, Anywhere Learning series. We're getting closer and closer to the end, which means it's time for the cumulative project. During the last video, you may have seen this particular slide, and I hope you took the time to listen to Ms. Drake as she went through the instructions for the final culminating performance assessment. I want to make it clear that this particular assessment is due no later than May 18th, 2020 by 11:59 p.m. So now is our time to really start working on these projects. The teachers are ready to give you feedback. And during this presentation, I'm going to walk through exactly what we're looking for, and I'm even going to show you an exemplar. So for today's lesson objective and frame, it comes from Standards 2.14a, write an engaging story with a well-developed conflict and resolution, interesting and believable characters, a range of literary strategies and devices to enhance the plot, and sensory details that define the mood or tone. As for the objective, students will learn how to write a fiction story using their research time period, which includes a well-developed conflict and resolution, interesting characters, literary strategies, devices to enhance the plot, and sensory details. So to frame today's lesson, I'm going to show the opening scene of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. As you watch, also listen to how Will Smith crafts a short story. Take a look.
All about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel-Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all, shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air." I begged and pleaded with her day after day, but she packed my suitcase and sent me on my way. She gave me a kiss and then she gave me my ticket. I put my Walkman on and said I might as well kick it. First class, yo, this is bad. Drinking orange juice out of a champagne glass. Is this what the people of Bel-Air living like? This might be alright. I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said Fresh and it had dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, man, forget it. Yo, home to Bel-Air. I pulled up to the house about 7 or 8, and I yelled to the cabby, "Yo, home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air.
I hope you enjoyed watching that scene just as much as I did. I want to break down some of the lyrics that you heard Will Smith say that really contribute to a short story. So he starts off in West Philadelphia, born and raised. So right then and there, we know he's from West Philadelphia. You know, that's from the north. So he probably takes on a northern dialect, northern culture. We can see that in his attire. We also heard him say, "I got in one little fight and my mom got scared. She said, 'You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air.'" And so now we're aware that he's bringing different characters into this story. Also, I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said Fresh and it had dice in the mirror. What is that? That's imagery. We can see this cab. He even talks about how it smelled a little bit. Once he pulls up to the mansion, he says, "I looked in my kingdom. I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air." So this mansion is almost symbolical for a kingdom of royalty. Also, characterization, Will Smith considers himself the prince. He knows that he's worthy of living in that mansion. So that's a fun way of putting together a short story. This is something that you can do also, but let's talk a little bit about our expectations from you for this particular culminating assessment. So you may have seen this in class. This is similar to a short story graphic organizer. What you're seeing here will be uploaded to Google Classroom if you'd like to use it, but we are expecting you to have the elements that you see here. The title, what is the setting? What is the time period? What about the point of view, the plot, the protagonist, the antagonist? How about the conflict? Symbols, irony. Look at these different components. Allusions, foreshadowing, flashback, suspense, theme. You may be thinking, yes, we went over these in previous lessons. That was the whole point. And so now I want to give you some step-by-step instructions actually on how to create a dynamic short story. So you may be wondering what's required of this short story. Well, if typed onto a Google Doc, your fiction story must include a minimum of 2 pages, double-spaced. If converted into a Google slide presentation, your short story must include a minimum of 10 slides with illustrations. Be sure to stick around because by the end of this virtual lesson, I'm going to show you an example of both types. An exemplar story that's typed on a Google Doc and one that is on a Google slide. So step 1. Create a conflict. There has to be some type of problem that needs to be resolved. Always remember that plot is driven by conflict. So step 1, create a conflict. There has to be some type of problem that needs to be resolved. Always remember that plot is driven by conflict. Step 2, make believable, interesting, and memorable characters. You need to utilize both direct and indirect characterization in your short story. Step 3, make your main character go on a journey to learn a valuable lesson. Most stories teach a life lesson, such as theme. That's what we've been talking about and teaching about. Step 4, utilize an antagonist to almost defeat your character. Use emotions, and P.S., plot twists are actually fun. Step 5, resolve the conflict and give your character an ending. You can also take advantage of a cliffhanger. Okay, so one analogy I hope that you will remember is that a good story is like a great bowl of gumbo. It's also a simile when you think about it. Gumbo is delicious and it's memorable, just like a really good short story. So let's talk about the different elements of gumbo. So the roux, that's the foundation of the gumbo, and it's just like the plot, which is the foundation of a short story or any story. Seasonings add flavor and they're powerful to the palate. That's just like figurative language, sprinkled around, but when it settles, it becomes powerful to the senses. Onions, scallions, green onions, and celery. The underlying reason there is great flavor in the gumbo. That's synonymous to the theme, which is the underlying message of the story. When we talk about variety of meats that you can have in a gumbo, such as chicken, shrimp, sausage, crab legs, that adds different flavors, textures, and substance. That aligns with the characters. Variety of flat and round characters, dynamic and static characters, character flaws, and even strengths. And so what about heat? Without it, the gumbo isn't consumable. That's equivalent to the conflict. Without it, there are just a bunch of characters roaming around in a setting, a driving force of the story. Awesome. So now that we've reviewed the different steps of a short story, I'd like to review 2 different student exemplars. The first one is a short story submitted on a Google Doc. The second one is a short story submitted on a Google slide. Let's take a look. Now, the first exemplar we are looking at is a short story on a Google Doc. As you can see, the author's name is Clay Cooley. His teacher is Elise Dent. He's in English 2, and the date is May 17, 2020, right before the due date. The title of Clay's short story is May's Heart. So as I go through and read, I actually want to pinpoint some of the requirements of this short story that we've identified ahead of time. So let's look. It was August of 1932 in the town of Mejia, Texas. There was no escaping the heat of the Great Depression. It was humid and stifling like a hot summer day. So as you can see, here the writer identifies the time period. This sentence also serves as the exposition of the plot. So right here, by stating like a hot summer day, the writer uses a simile to compare the humid and stifling weather to summer temperatures. Let's keep reading. The heat, however, never stopped the mockingbirds. May did not seem daunted by the heat. In fact, she liked the heat. When people near her home got overwhelmed, they would stop by her house and ask her for something to drink. May would often sit in her big wooden rocking chair that had been inherited from decades of good-hearted women. So let's pause right here. So the big wooden rocking chair is symbolic of womanhood and good character. It's a great way that the author used symbolism. Let's continue reading. On this particular day, May was sitting on the porch watching the people as she noticed a young mother in rags with her young child. May calls out to her, "Ma'am, are you all right?" The young woman looks at her with a tear-stained face. "I'm not sure. I've been traveling a long time. My daughter and I had to get away from our town. I had a good life with my husband, but he lost his job as the mill and we lost our house. I guess he couldn't take it anymore. One night I heard a boom in the backyard. My husband done killed himself." So let's focus in on these sentences here. The author uses a Southern dialect which helps convey the diction and syntax. When she says, "I had a good life with my husband," shows simple word choice and sentence structure that was reflective of the time period and setting. Let's continue to read. "We don't have anything left, ma'am." The woman began to weep, and her child, hair wild and feet dirty, sobbed. So let's zoom in right here on this sentence. Hair wild and feet dirty illustrates imagery. We can visualize the appearance of both the woman and child. So let's continue reading. As May began to bring the woman into her house, the sheriff appeared out of nowhere. "Now, May, who is this woman? We don't nothing about her, and you about to have her in your home? May, I done had enough of you trying to show off for the good people of Mahia. I won't stand for this anymore." From the porch, May glared at him. For decades, her porch was open to anyone who walked near, and she wasn't going to let the sheriff stop her from helping anyone in need. Let's focus in on this sentence. Characterization is used here to convey May's actions. The reader can comprehend that she is a passionate woman and she cares about helping others. This is indirect characterization, to be exact. "May, I done wrong today. I hope you can forgive me. Everything that's going on has me scared that we won't be able to feed ourselves. Please forgive me, May." May gave him a big hug and yelled, "Sheriff, it's all right to be scared sometimes, but never let your fear take away from your humanity. Where there are people in need, it is our duty to show generosity and compassion." Let's zoom in on this sentence. May's commitment to the sheriff conveys the theme of the story. Generosity and compassion can positively impact the struggling community. "Now, for all the trouble you caused me today, give me one of your hogs." The entire town burst into laughter, and May laughed a good hearty laugh, knowing that she contributed once again to her small town. So let's take a look at a short story on a Google slide. As you can see, the title is here in the center. Clay Cooley, Elise Den, English 2, May 17, 2020. Very nice cover slide. So as we go on, I think you get the point. This is the same short story I just read you. However, it's been converted into a Google slide. The author copied and pasted the content from the Google Doc onto a Google slide. You can see it's the same exact story, but there's a picture there. Story, picture. And he continues. Every slide has a picture. However, the picture matches what is going on in that part of the text. The sheriff, red and swollen in the face, shouted, "May, that's enough." You can see this officer is shouting, so the pictures correlate with what is in the short story. Awesome. So now you've seen an exemplar on a Google Doc and on a Google slide. So you have options. Just make sure that you follow the requirements. And also remember that this project, this culminating assessment, is due no later than May 18th. If you have any questions at this point, please email your teacher. We want you to start working on this project. We're ready to give you feedback. Thank you so much for watching.